Herzlich willkommen bei Empower Migra. So welcome to Empower Migra.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Here on this deep dive, we basically look at the scientific research surrounding migration, integration, the labor market, and, discrimination.
Right, but without all the academic jargon, which I think is key.
Exactly. No academic mumbo jumbo. The goal is to just bypass all of that and zero in on a very simple premise, which is what does the empirical data actually say? And, how does that compare against what society generally believes to be true?
Yeah, and it's often a really stark contrast. I mean, the assumptions we make about how the world works, especially regarding career advancement and integration, they really rarely survive contact with the actual data.
They really don't.
No, because we tend to prefer narratives that emphasize, like, individual control, right?
Yeah.
But the data just consistently points toward these hidden structural forces.
Yeah, and to get right into that, I want to start by putting you, the listener, into a very specific reality. So just imagine you spent 4, maybe 5 years at a university or like in a really intensive vocational program.
Right, burning the midnight oil.
Exactly. You mastered complex theories, you passed rigorous practical exams, and you hold a formal specialized degree.
Yeah.
You know the exact tensile strength of different building materials or, I don't know, the specific biochemical reactions of pharmaceuticals or the intricate tax codes of corporate finance.
You have a tangible, verified certification of that knowledge. You've got the human capital.
Right, you have the capital. But then tomorrow morning, your alarm goes off at 5 a.m.
Ugh, the worst.
Yeah, and you put on a uniform, you commute 45 minutes, and you spend the next 8 hours sorting packages in a logistics center or, scanning barcodes at a checkout line. You are performing tasks that require zero prior training. None. The complex knowledge you spent years acquiring it's entirely irrelevant to your daily survival. You are working radically below your level of education.
Which, I mean, it represents a complete fracturing of the expected economic contract, right?
The contract being that hard work pays off.
Yeah, exactly. The investment of time and resources into your education, it's supposed to yield a proportional return in occupational status and income. That's the deal we're all sold.
Right.
And when that doesn't happen, the psychological and economic toll is just, well, it's immense.
It's devastating. Now, an honest question for you, the listener. If you look at that scenario, the immediate question is, well, why? Is this happening because you simply aren't qualified enough?
Like you somehow just forgot your entire education.
Right. Did it just fall out of your head? Or, and this is the core of our deep dive today, could there be an entirely different hidden mechanism operating beneath the surface, quietly dictating your trajectory in the job market regardless of your actual skills?
Yeah, and if you ask the average person why someone with a specialized degree is working in a warehouse, the default explanation almost always centers on a personal deficit.
It's that meritocracy myth, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
The belief that the labor market is this perfectly efficient sorting machine. Like, it looks at your skills, weighs your effort, and just magical plops you into the exact tier you deserve.
Exactly. The prevalent societal narrative assumes that if a migrant is working below their qualification level, it must be because their degree isn't quite good enough.
Or they don't speak the language well enough.
Right, or perhaps they simply aren't navigating the job market aggressively enough. They aren't trying hard enough. The blame is localized entirely within the individual.
Which is an incredibly pervasive narrative because, well, I think it's comfortable.
It's very comfortable.
If we believe the system is perfectly meritocratic, then we don't have to look at the structural flaws. We just tell people, hey, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, try harder, send out more resumes.
Right, just hustle more.
Yeah, hustle culture. We assume that effort and education will universally force the system to yield the right job. But, anyone who has actually looked at the trajectory of migrant workers knows there is a massive disconnect here.
A huge one.
These individuals clearly have the work ethic. You do not survive a warehouse shift or a 12-hour stint driving a taxi without an intense capacity for hard work.
No. You really don't, which is exactly why we need to look at the architecture of the system itself, rather than just criticizing the individuals who are, just trying to navigate it.
Right.
And to do that, we are looking at a 2021 study by researchers Nancy Kracke and Kracke and Klug.
Okay, let's get into it.
Yeah. The study is titled Social Capital and Its Effect on Labor Market Mismatch, Migrants' Overqualification in Germany.
And I find this study so fascinating because it ignores the usual metric we hear about in the news. Whenever migration and the economy are discussed on TV, the focus is almost exclusively on the unemployment rate, right? Like, are people working, yes or no?
Yeah, it's always just a binary.
Yeah.
Employed or unemployed.
Exactly. But Kracke and Klug, they look at the people who actually do have jobs. They investigate the mechanics of why migrants in Germany are so frequently funneled into positions where they are radically overqualified.
Because unemployment, like you said, is a binary metric. It tells you absolutely nothing about the quality or the suitability of the work.
Huh.
This study examines human capital that is actively lying idle within the workforce.
Yeah, so to really grasp this, we should probably establish the baseline. We are talking about overqualification.
Right.
And economically speaking, that doesn't just mean you find your job boring or like you think you're smarter than your boss.
No, far from it. Overqualification is a very precise economic condition. It means an individual's acquired level of education and training objectively exceeds the requirements of their current occupation.
Okay.
The skills they possess cannot be converted into monetary or non-monetary returns. They are essentially locked out of the wages, the social status, and the occupational satisfaction that should theoretically accompany their level of education.
Right, let me try to visualize this for the listener. It's like, imagine a city spending billions to build a state-of-the-art high-speed transit network.
Look, I like this analogy.
The infrastructure is there, the trains are capable of moving thousands of people at incredible speeds, but the city planners, for some reason, only allow people to use the network to ride bicycles on the tracks.
Wow. Yeah, that's it.
The capacity exists, the massive investment was made, but the actual utilization is artificially restricted to a tiny fraction of its potential. All that potential is just sitting idle.
That captures the inefficiency of it perfectly. It's not just a loss for the individual, it is a massive systemic waste of economic potential for the host country.
Because society is losing out, too.
Absolutely. The host country could be utilizing engineers, accountants, chemists, but instead it is restricting that human capital to rudimentary tasks.
And the scale of this restriction is just staggering. So Kracke and Klug utilized data from the German IAB SOEP migration sample. For those unfamiliar with that acronym, this is a massive, highly respected longitudinal survey that was conducted in 2013 and 2014. It tracked the living conditions of migrants in Germany in incredible detail, right?
Right. The IAB SOEP panel is crucial here because it isn't just a quick public opinion poll. It gathers granular, long-term data on education, employment history, social networks, income all over time. It provides a really robust empirical foundation for this whole analysis.
So when the researchers actually analyzed this data set, they found that roughly 54% of the migrants in the sample were overqualified for their current jobs.
54%.
Over half.
Yeah, and that number alone should completely dismantle the idea that this is just some rare anecdotal phenomenon. Oh, my cousin's neighbor has a PhD and drives an Uber. No, we are looking at a systemic reality affecting the majority of the demographic in this sample.
The majority. But here is where the study fundamentally destroys that societal narrative of personal deficit we talked about earlier. Because if 54% of people are overqualified, the immediate counter-argument from the meritocracy crowd is going to be, well, maybe their foreign degrees just aren't up to standard.
Right, or maybe they don't speak German well enough to work in an office.
Exactly, that's the standard defense.
And that is exactly why Kracke and Klug designed their methodology to mathematically isolate those exact factors they controlled for human capital.
Okay, so my understanding of controlling for variables in a study like this, just to break it down, is that you essentially filter out the noise, right? Like if I'm trying to test whether a specific brand of running shoes makes you run faster, I can't just test professional athletes wearing brand A against total couch potato beginners wearing brand B.
No, because the results would be useless.
Right. I have to control for fitness levels, track conditions, weather, everything, so that the only difference between the two groups is the shoes.
That is a very solid baseline for understanding regression analysis, yeah. In this context, controlling for human capital means the researchers mathematically leveled the playing field. They factored in German language proficiency. They factored in years of work experience.
And they went even further regarding the degrees themselves, didn't they?
They did. And this is arguably the most vital methodological choice in the entire paper. They strictly limited their analysis to migrants whose foreign educational credentials had been officially recognized by the German authorities.
Wait, recognized. That is massive.
Yes.
Because, I mean, getting a foreign degree recognized in Germany is notoriously difficult. It's an absolute bureaucratic labyrinth.
Oh, it's a nightmare.
You have to prove that the curriculum you studied abroad is functionally identical to the German equivalent, translating syllabi, getting stamps, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, and if your degree is recognized, the state is legally affirming that your knowledge is completely equal to someone who studied in Munich or Berlin.
Precisely. So the researchers entirely excluded individuals whose credentials were unverified or rejected.
Exactly. They remove the whole lack of skills argument from the equation entirely.
Okay, so just so I have this perfectly clear, the people we are talking about in this 54% statistic, they are individuals who, on paper, possess the exact same usable, verified qualifications, the exact same language proficiency, and the exact same work experience as a native-born German worker applying for the exact same job.
Yes. They hold the identical keys to the system.
Yet they are still ending up at the bottom of the job ladder. The doors just remain locked to them,
Yep.
which proves definitively that the mismatch cannot be explained by a lack of qualifications alone. It's scientifically proven. It is not about what they know. The meritocratic sorting machine is broken. So, and this is the big question. If the human capital is identical, what is the hidden variable actually dictating their career outcomes?
What shifts from human capital, which is what you know, to social capital, which is who you know. The researchers focused heavily on the mechanisms of the job search itself. They categorized how people actually look for work into two distinct lanes. You have formal search strategies, and you have informal search strategies.
Okay, so formal search strategies, those are the institutional pathways, right? Like, you look at online job boards, you register with a federal employment agency.
Right, the Agentur für Arbeit.
Yeah, you respond to public vacancy advertisements on LinkedIn or Stepstone. You use headhunters. It's the public documented system of hiring.
Yeah, and it is based, theoretically at least, on objective matching. An employer posts a list of required skills, a candidate submits proof of those skills, and the institution facilitates the connection.
Got it. And then informal search strategies, that basically bypasses the institutions. That's just networking.
Exactly. You ask your friends, your family members, your former colleagues, people in your sports club. You just put the word out to your social circle that, hey, you're looking for work.
But wait, we are constantly told that informal networking is like the superior way to navigate a career. Your network is your net worth, right? That's practically a cliche in career advice. The conventional wisdom is that the best jobs are never even posted publicly. They're all filled through referrals.
And for native-born citizens, that conventional wisdom actually often holds true. Informal searches can yield excellent results because they grant access to insider information, and they let you bypass the massive pile of resumes sitting on an HR manager's desk.
Right.
But the data for migrants reveals a completely inverted reality.
This was the finding that completely stopped me in my tracks when I read the outline.
Yeah, it's wild. The study demonstrates that if a migrant relies exclusively on informal job search strategies, meaning if they only use their social network to find work, their risk of ending up in an overqualified position increases by almost 12 percentage points compared to migrants who utilize formal institutional strategies.
Wait, really? An almost 12 percentage point penalty simply for asking your friends for a job lead?
Yes. The exact strategy that accelerates a native worker's career actively sabotages the migrant worker's career.
It turns networking from a ladder into a trap.
A complete trap.
But why? I'm trying to visualize the mechanics of this because say I have a degree in civil engineering, right? And I ask my friend for a job lead. My friend isn't going to maliciously try to ruin my career. They want to help me. Why does the act of relying on that friend statistically guarantee or at least heavily increase the risk that I will end up underemployed?
To understand the mechanics of that, we have to examine the demographic architecture of the friendships themselves.
Okay.
The researchers utilized a sociological concept known as network homophily.
Network homophily. Okay, I know homophily generally means the tendency of individuals to associate with similar people, like birds of a feather flock together. I picture it kind of like a social media algorithm. The algorithm notices you like a certain type of music, so it only feeds you that exact type of music.
Right.
And eventually, your entire playlist is completely homogenous, and you never hear anything outside your specific genre. You become structurally isolated from new information.
That is actually a very accurate way to conceptualize it. In sociological terms, homophily dictates that social ties are concentrated among people with similar characteristics. be it age, education, or, crucially in this context, ethnic background and migration status.
Ah.
So the study specifically measured homophilous networks, which they defined as social circles comprised entirely or predominantly of other migrants.
So if I look at my phone contacts, and the vast majority of the people I interact with, the people I get coffee with, are also migrants from my home country, or just migrants in general,
Yeah.
I exist within a homophilous network.
You do. And the empirical finding here is severe. Simply possessing a homophilous network increases a migrant's risk of overqualification by 14 percentage points.
Just having the network carries a 14-point risk.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just existing in it. And then, when you combine the two factors, when you conduct an informal job search within a homophilous network, you trigger the absolute highest risk of labor market mismatch observed in the entire study.
Wow. I want to break down exactly how this deadly combination operates on a daily basis. Because if I exist in a homophilous network, my friends genuinely want to help me find an engineering job, but they can only provide information that they themselves possess, right?
Exactly. They can't give you what they don't have. And this introduces another key concept, host country-specific social capital.
Let's define that clearly, because we aren't just talking about knowing how to speak German, are we?
No, language is human capital. Remember, we already controlled for that.
Right.
Social capital refers to the resources embedded within your social network. So host country-specific social capital encompasses all the unwritten rules of the labor market. It's the implicit knowledge of, say, how to format a resume for a specific industry in Germany.
Like putting a photo on your CV, which is common in Germany, but illegal or weird in other places.
Exactly. Or knowing the cultural expectations during a job interview. Or having an awareness of which mid-sized companies in your area are quietly expanding their engineering departments. Most importantly, it is the access to the hidden job market.
The hidden job market, the jobs that are filled before they even make it to a public job board.
Precisely. HR departments are inherently risk-averse. Hiring a complete stranger is risky. Hiring a stranger who is recommended by a trusted current employee, that mitigates the risk. Therefore, companies rely heavily on internal referrals.
Okay, so let's look at the homophilous network through the lens of that hidden job market. If my entire social circle consists of other migrants, and we know historically that migrants are statistically overrepresented in secondary labor markets, logistics, cleaning, basic manufacturing, then the only insider information circulating within my network pertains to those secondary markets.
Yes, your network is an information loop. If no one in your network works in the corporate engineering firm downtown, no one in your network will hear about the unadvertised opening in that engineering department. They cannot refer you to a room they themselves cannot enter.
Oh, man. So my friend, trying to be super helpful, says, hey, I don't know anyone hiring civil engineers, but the warehouse where I work is desperately looking for shift supervisors. You should take it just to pay the bills while you keep looking.
And because you lack alternative information channels, because you lack what sociologists call bridging ties, you accept the warehouse job.
Bridging ties, as opposed to bonding ties.
Yes, exactly. The sociologist Robert Putnam famously distinguished between the two. Bonding social capital occurs within a homogeneous group. It's crucial for emotional support and just, getting by. And migrant communities often have incredibly strong bonding ties. They support each other immensely.
Oh, for sure. You need that community to survive the shock of moving to a new country.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But bridging social capital is what connects you to outgroups. It's the tie to the native population, to people who occupy different socioeconomic strata or different industries.
So bridging ties are what you need for getting ahead, not just getting by.
Yes, they are the conduits for new, diverse information. If a migrant lacks bridging ties to native-born Germans who are established in the primary labor market, their job search is structurally confined. They are relying on a network that has already been marginalized by the system.
It's just this compounding penalty. The host society marginalizes the first wave of migrants, right?
Yeah.
Pushing them into low-wage sectors regardless of their education. Then when the next wave arrives, they naturally connect with their community for support.
Naturally.
But because that community has already been marginalized, the only opportunities they can offer the new arrivals are also in the margins. The structural exclusion just replicates itself through the social network.
It creates an almost inescapable gravity. Your social resources, which you activated during the job search with the best of intentions, actively funnel you away from adequate employment and into jobs where your human capital is completely wasted.
This completely upends how we view the responsibility of the job seeker. The migrant isn't failing to network. They are networking exactly as a native-born citizen would.
Yes, the effort is identical.
But the structural architecture of their network turns that exact same effort into a liability.
Right.
And the study shows that this dynamic doesn't just exist in private friend groups, right? It physically manifests in the workplace itself.
Oh, yes. The researchers analyzed the impact of what they termed employment niches.
Okay, so how does the study define an employment niche? Are we talking about a specific industry like construction or hospitality?
Well, it can be an entire industry, but it can also be as localized as a specific company or even just a specific factory floor or department within a company where the concentration of migrant workers is disproportionately high. The researchers measured this by asking the survey respondents a very direct question. How many of your coworkers are also migrants?
And the results.
If an individual reported that all or most of their coworkers were also migrants, their risk of experiencing overqualification skyrocketed by 17 percentage points.
17 points. That is the single largest risk factor we've discussed so far.
By far.
So if you are physically surrounded by other migrants at your workplace, the statistical probability is overwhelmingly high that you are vastly overqualified for the work you are doing.
It indicates a severe segmentation of the labor market. I mean, think about it. These employment niches are not forming organically because migrants naturally possess some inherent biological affinity for cleaning hotel rooms or packing boxes.
Obviously not. Nobody is born with a genetic predisposition for warehouse logistics.
No, they are forming because structural forces, combined with that homophilous networking we talked about, are continually funneling highly educated individuals into segregated economic zones.
I look at the physical reality of an employment niche and it feels like a quarantine zone for human capital.
A quarantine zone, yeah.
Because once you accept that job in the warehouse because your homophilous network recommended it and hey, you needed to pay rent, you are now physically located inside the niche. You spend 40 to 50 hours a week there.
Which means your opportunity to forge bridging ties with the native population dropped to near zero.
Exactly. Who are your new work friends? Other migrants in the exact same niche. Your network becomes even more homophilous. The echo chamber gets thicker walls. The information loop just tightens.
It becomes a self-reinforcing cycle of underemployment. You are exhausted from the warehouse shift, your professional engineering skills are degrading from lack of use, and your social circle is entirely comprised of people who only have access to other warehouse jobs.
And breaking out of that niche and re-entering the primary labor market where your recognized degree holds value becomes exponentially more difficult with every passing month.
It really does.
This research is so vital because it just forces us to confront the hypocrisy in how society judges career trajectories. We demand that people prove their worth, but we are completely blind to the structural currents dragging them down.
We really are.
Let's do a thought experiment, actually, to really cement how arbitrary this all is, because I want to turn this directly to the listener.
Okay, let's lay it out.
Imagine two individuals, okay? Person A and person B. They both recently immigrated to Germany. They both hold a master's degree in software engineering from the exact same foreign university. They both graduated with top honors. They both speak fluent German.
Okay, identical human capital.
Right. And they both navigated the bureaucracy and had their degrees 100% officially recognized by the German state. So, on paper, the labor market should treat them as completely indistinguishable.
Yes.
Now, person A happens to move into an apartment building where they meet a native-born German neighbor who invites them to join a local tennis club. At the tennis club, person A meets a project manager at a mid-sized tech firm.
Ah, that's a bridging tie.
Exactly. The project manager mentions they are looking for a software engineer, but they haven't posted the job online yet. Person A hands over their resume directly.
They have completely bypassed the institutional friction and accessed the hidden job market via host country-specific social capital.
Perfect. Meanwhile, person B moves into a neighborhood with a high concentration of migrants from their home country. They join a local community group that provides immense emotional support.
Which is strong bonding capital.
Yes, bonding capital. But when person B needs a job, they ask the community group. The group informs them that a local logistics company is always hiring drivers. Person B takes the job to survive. They are now in an employment niche.
And the divergence in their career paths is profound, yet it has absolutely nothing to do with their intelligence, their work ethic, or their qualifications.
Nothing at all. Person A becomes a senior software engineer. Person B drives a delivery van. If society looks at person B driving that van, the assumption would be, oh, they must not be a very good engineer, or they should have networked harder.
But they did network. They networked exactly as hard as person A.
They just didn't have access to the tennis club. If someone only has access to certain types of jobs because of their social circle, can we really say their career outcome is based solely on their individual performance?
No, we can't. If career outcomes are dictated this heavily by the demographic makeup of your social circle, the concept of a pure meritocracy is exposed as a complete illusion.
An illusion.
And it is an illusion that serves to justify inequality. If we acknowledge that person B's outcome is the result of structural exclusion, then the host society has to actually take responsibility for fixing the structure. It is so much easier to just blame person B.
Yeah, much easier to just say they didn't try hard enough. And this structural reality is particularly harsh in Germany, isn't it? The study highlights the specific context of the German labor market, which is, well, it's notoriously rigid.
Yes, Germany operates on a system of strong occupational closure.
Break that down for me. What does occupational closure actually mean in practice?
It means that access to specific professions is tightly regulated and legally bounded by formal credentials. Germany has a highly developed dual vocational training system. You cannot simply claim you know how to do a job. You must possess the specific state-recognized certificate for that exact job.
You can't just be a handyman. You have to be a certified electrician or a certified plumber with a multi-year apprenticeship to prove it.
Correct. The labor market is heavily credentialized. And the theoretical advantage of this system is that it ensures high quality and standardization across the board.
But the reality for a migrant is that it creates an incredibly high barrier to entry. Society tells them, you must play by our rigid rules. You must spend years learning the language, navigating the recognition authorities, and acquiring the exact right credential.
And as the Kracke and Klug study proves, even when the migrants successfully navigate that gauntlet, even when they acquire the recognized credential, the system still fails them.
Because the formal credential is only half the key. The other half is the bridging tie, the social capital required to actually get the resume onto the hiring manager's desk.
Exactly. It highlights a really profound contradiction in how the host society approaches integration.
I really want to explore that contradiction because we zoom out to the bigger picture here, right? We frame integration as a checklist. Learn the language, check. Obey the laws, check. Get a job, pay taxes, check. We place the entire burden of integration on the shoulders of the individual migrant.
We treat it as an individual performance metric. But this data proved that labor market integration is fundamentally a structural relational process. You cannot integrate into a vacuum.
Right.
Integration requires a host society that is willing to be integrated with.
That is such a good way to put it. Society demands assimilation. Politicians stand at podiums and demand that migrants integrate into the primary labor market and contribute to the economy. But simultaneously, the informal structures of that same society, the reliance on homophilous referral networks, the hidden job markets, the implicit biases in HR departments, they actively enforce segregation.
The formal institutions demand integration, but the informal social architecture enforces exclusion.
It's like a city building a massive fortified wall around its economic center. They put a single heavy door in the wall. They tell the migrants outside, you want to come in and work, you have to forge a very specific, highly complex key.
Okay.
So the migrant spends years forging the key, the language skills, the recognized degree. They walk up to the door, they insert the key, the lock turns perfectly.
But the door doesn't open.
No, because there is a heavy iron deadbolt on the inside of the door. And the only way that deadbolt slides back is if someone who is already inside the wall walks over and opens it for you.
A bridging tie.
Yes. If you don't know anyone inside the wall, you can stand there all day with your perfectly forged, state-recognized key, and you are never getting in.
And eventually, economic reality sets in. You have to feed your family. You have to pay rent.
So you walk away from the door, and you go work in the fields outside the wall, pulling weeds, even though you hold a master's degree in architecture. And then the people standing on the wall look down at you and say, look at them, they clearly have no ambition. They only want to pull weeds.
It's tragic, honestly. The cruelty of the system is that it punishes the marginalized for the effects of their marginalization.
Which brings us toward a sort of philosophical conclusion, really, because it forces us to reconsider the ultimate fairness of our economic systems. If your qualifications alone do not actually decide who gets the job, if a massive percentage of your career outcome is dictated by the background of the people in your phone's contact list, then how fair is our labor market, really?
It's functioning less like a meritocracy
Yeah.
and more like an exclusive social club.
A club that claims to be open to everyone but relies on unwritten rules and private invitations to maintain its exclusivity.
Right. And if we accept that reality, it demands a radical redefinition of what integration actually requires in a modern society.
Yes. It requires institutional intervention. If we know that informal networking actively harms migrant trajectories, we cannot simply tell migrants to network better. The host society must alter its hiring structures. True integration requires structural access, not just individual effort.
Companies need to recognize that their internal referral systems are essentially bias replication machines. If a company's engineering department is entirely native-born Germans and they only hire through employee referrals, they are guaranteeing that their future hires will also be native-born Germans.
Yeah.
They are structurally locking out diverse, highly qualified human capital.
They are maintaining the deadbolt on the inside of the door.
Exactly. To truly foster integration, employers must prioritize formal, transparent hiring channels. They must actively seek to dismantle the hidden job market that relies on bridging ties.
It requires a massive shift, a shift from demanding individual assimilation to providing actual structural access. We have to open the deadbolt.
And we must recognize the immense economic cost of failing to do so.
Hmm.
Allowing 54% of a highly educated demographic to languish in employment niches is a catastrophic misallocation of resources.
We are leaving the state-of-the-art transit system sitting completely empty while we force people to pedal bicycles on the tracks. It's inefficient, it's unjust, and the data proves it is entirely structural.
I think the most provocative realization from all of this is perhaps the idea that the most powerful credential in our society isn't the one printed on university cardstock.
No.
It is the invisible web of social connections we have access to.
Yeah.
What integration actually mean if your opportunities to succeed are fundamentally bounded by whom you know rather than what you can do.
And if that invisible web is dictating outcomes more than actual knowledge, then it isn't migrants who are failing to integrate into the economy. It is the economy that is failing to integrate its own available human capital.
That is the core takeaway. The structural failure belongs to the host society.
I really want you, the listener, to sit with that thought today. Look at your own career path. Look at your own network. How many of the doors that opened for you were unlocked purely by your own merit? And how many were quietly unbolted from the inside by someone you knew? Because when we start asking those questions, the narrative of meritocracy begins to look very, very different. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the structural realities of the labor market.
It is a crucial conversation to have, really.
Das war eine weitere Folge von Empower Migra. Empower Migra verstehen, beginn mit Zuhören.